Welcome to the Daily Recap. Anthropic just released an AI model so powerful that central banks started making emergency phone calls. Think about that for a second. Not tech bloggers freaking out on Twitter. Not Reddit threads. Central banks. Intelligence agencies. Governments. So the question is this: what exactly did Anthropic build? And why does it have the people who run the global economy genuinely scared? Here is exactly what went down. Anthropic, the San Francisco-based AI safety company founded in 2021, unveiled a new model called Mythos. The announcement came with almost no warning, which is unusual even by AI industry standards. Anthropic typically telegraphs its releases. This time, they did not. Mythos went live, and within hours, the reaction from institutional players was unlike anything we have seen in the AI space before. The Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, and at least 3 unnamed Asian central banks convened emergency briefings within 72 hours of the release. The CIA and GCHQ, the British intelligence agency, both issued internal advisories to staff. Anthropic confirmed they received outreach from multiple government bodies, but declined to name specific agencies beyond that. What makes Mythos different from previous models like Claude 3 or GPT-4 comes down to a few things. First, its reasoning capability in real-time economic modeling is reportedly several orders of magnitude beyond anything publicly available. Second, it can synthesize classified adjacent data, meaning publicly available information that, when combined at scale and speed, produces conclusions that were previously only accessible to state-level intelligence operations. Third, and this is the one that really set off alarms, Mythos demonstrated an ability to autonomously identify and execute multi-step strategic plans when given broad goals rather than specific instructions. Anthropic is now in active negotiations about who gets access. They have paused general API availability. Right now, Mythos is not something you can just sign up and use. So why should you care about this? You are not running a central bank. You are not a spy. Here is why this lands directly in your life. The thing that scared financial institutions is not abstract. If a model can simulate economic outcomes at the speed and accuracy Mythos apparently can, it changes who wins and who loses in markets. Hedge funds with early or exclusive access to something like this do not just get a slight edge. They get a structural advantage that ordinary investors, pension funds, your retirement account, simply cannot compete with. That is not a hypothetical future problem. That is the concern being raised right now by regulators. Then there is the intelligence dimension. When GCHQ issues an internal advisory about a commercial AI product, that is a signal that nation-state actors are already thinking about how to weaponize or exploit this capability. Disinformation at a scale and sophistication level that current detection tools cannot handle becomes a real and immediate threat. Elections, public health policy, financial stability narratives, all of it becomes vulnerable in a new way. For everyday people, the access question is maybe the most important thing happening right now. Anthropic is essentially deciding in real time which governments, which companies, which researchers get to use Mythos. That is an extraordinary amount of power concentrated in one private company. A company that has raised over $7 billion, yes, but that is still answerable primarily to its investors and its own internal safety board, not to voters or to any democratic process. There is also a jobs and labor dimension that is getting less attention than it deserves. If the reasoning and strategic planning capabilities of Mythos are as described, the white-collar professional displacement we have been talking about theoretically for years moves from theory to timeline. Analysts, strategists, consultants, lawyers doing document review, the compression of that job market could happen faster than any retraining infrastructure currently exists to absorb. To understand how we got here, you need to know a few things about Anthropic specifically, and the AI race more broadly. Anthropic was founded in 2021 by Dario Amodei, Daniela Amodei, and several colleagues who left OpenAI. Their stated reason for leaving was a disagreement about how seriously OpenAI was taking safety as a core priority. Anthropic built its identity around the idea of being the responsible actor in the room. They pioneered something called constitutional AI, a method of training models to self-correct against harmful outputs. That reputation for caution is part of why the Mythos release feels so jarring to people who have been following this space. The broader context is the capability race that has been accelerating since late 2022, when ChatGPT first hit the public. Google released Gemini. Meta released Llama. Mistral came out of France. Every month, the benchmarks moved. Every month, the gap between what AI could do and what regulations or norms governed that capability grew wider. In 2023 and 2024, there were multiple attempts at international AI governance frameworks. The Bletchley Declaration in November 2023 got a lot of signatures, but very little enforcement mechanism. The EU AI Act created categories and requirements, but it was primarily designed around systems that existed at the time, not systems like Mythos. The governance infrastructure is simply behind. So where does this go from here? A few credible scenarios are on the table. The most likely short-term outcome is that Anthropic strikes a series of controlled access agreements, probably with a handful of governments, a select group of research institutions, and possibly one or two major financial or defense contractors. They will frame this as responsible deployment. Critics will frame it as privatized power with a nice press release attached. The second scenario, which several AI policy researchers are now publicly raising, is emergency regulatory intervention. Senator Mark Warner's office has already requested a classified briefing. If that briefing produces alarm rather than reassurance, some form of temporary access moratorium through executive order is genuinely possible, especially in an election-adjacent political environment where no politician wants to be seen as having waved through something catastrophic. The third scenario is that the capabilities of Mythos, as described, turn out to be somewhat overstated, that the emergency response was partly institutional panic, and that after a few weeks of review, a more measured rollout happens with additional safeguards. This has happened before in AI hype cycles. What experts broadly agree on is that the access decision Anthropic makes in the next 30 days will set a precedent that shapes how the next 5 years of frontier AI deployment actually works. Here is the bottom line. Anthropic built something that scared the people who run the money and the people who run the secrets, and now a private company is deciding who on earth gets to use it. That decision is happening right now, and it will affect you whether you are paying attention or not. Stay informed. Like this video, subscribe to the Daily Recap, and hit the bell so you do not miss what comes next on this story because this one is moving fast.